You know what most men expect after a period of no contact? They assume you'll come back needing something. They believe you'll reach out because you've been sitting with your emotions, feeling confused, hoping for answers, and craving some kind of reassurance. That's the picture they've painted in their minds. She'll contact me eventually. She'll want to know why I vanished. She'll wonder if I ever really cared. She'll be looking for closure. And that expectation makes them feel comfortable. It gives them a sense of control, because if you come back searching for something, it confirms the story they've already told themselves, that they still hold the power, that they're still in control of the emotional connection. But the move he won't see coming is when you come back without needing anything at all. No begging, no need to explain yourself, no digging into deep emotional talk, just calm, clarity, peace. When you've handled no contact the right way, not as some strategy or game, but as a true path to healing, you emerge with emotional independence. That kind of inner strength is powerful because you don't need him to say anything. You're not looking for explanations. You've already sat with the discomfort. You've already asked yourself the hard questions. You've already done the healing work that people often expect someone else to do for them. And when you show up like that, not with open emotional wounds, but with quiet confidence, that's a moment he never planned for. It throws him off in the best way. He won't know where to place you anymore, because the version of you he thought he left behind is gone. That version would have chased him. That version would have insisted on a talk. That version would have handed over emotional power. But the woman who returns after no contact, who doesn't carry emotional debt, is someone he now has to adjust to. He can't predict her behavior anymore. And in that unpredictability lies your strength. You see, most people, men and women, find comfort in knowing how others will respond. If they ghost, they expect anger. If they withdraw, they expect to be followed. If they cause pain, they expect you to either lash out or come back seeking resolution. So when you break that pattern, when you come back not to restart the relationship, but simply to acknowledge the past and move forward, it sends a very different signal. He says, I've already worked through this. I'm already whole. Picture sending a message that doesn't say, why did you leave? Or did you ever care? But something more like, hey, I hope you're well. I've learned a lot these past few months, and I genuinely wish you the best. That doesn't mean you're trying to get back together. It doesn't mean you're pretending everything's okay. It just means you've found a kind of peace that's rare. And because it's rare, it sticks with people. Here's the twist. When you no longer need closure, that's often when people feel the strongest urge to give it. When you stop looking for answers, they start feeling the silence in a way they didn't before. Your absence begins to speak. Your calm begins to echo. Your quiet strength becomes the loudest message of all. It's the opposite of what he expected. And in that moment, something changes. Not just how he sees you, but how you see yourself. You start to realize that closure was never his to give. You weren't actually waiting for him. You were waiting to remember your own value. That's what time apart gave you. That space, that clarity, that fresh start. So now when you reach out, it's not to go over the pain again. It's not to ask for another chance. It's not to convince him of anything. You're simply standing in your truth, calm, centered, complete. And that version of you, it's magnetic, because she's not chasing. She's not trying to prove anything. She's not emotionally dependent on him. She's just present, clear, strong. That's the energy he won't be ready for. The truth is, most people don't expect you to grow past the version of yourself they took for granted. They believe they've seen your full emotional range. They think they know how you'll react. But when your growth is real, not driven by revenge, not based on pride, but born out of honest self-work, it breaks the mold. It forces a whole new dynamic, one they can't steer, one they didn't prepare. Part of the move he never saw coming. Let me tell you something most people miss after going silent. If you're going to reach out, or even consider letting someone back into your world, you have to know this. The version of you who re-enters can't be the same one he walked away from. Most men think that if they just wait long enough, if they stay away for a bit, you'll eventually come back unchanged, still wondering, still needing, still hoping that this time things will finally work out. But if you really want to turn the tables, if you want to do what he won't expect, you have to become someone he now has to earn. He expects passiveness. He expects familiar emotional responses. He expects that no matter how long it takes, you'll be there, maybe hidden behind a casual message, but still there. But that's not who you are anymore. You took time for yourself. You did the work. You endured the ache of detaching, and you came out stronger. Now this is the moment where you reintroduce yourself, not through words, but through energy, through calm certainty, through presence. A quiet but powerful message that says, I'm not here to pick up the broken pieces. I've already rebuilt myself. And it's not about proving anything to him. It's not about showing him you're better off. That still puts him at the center of your story. This is about standing in a place where the old version of you, the one who tolerated the bare minimum, who confused attention with care, who made excuses for inconsistency, no longer exists. Now, you're the version of yourself who lives your value, who doesn't just know her worth, but acts on it. And his boundaries rooted in self-love and standards based on respect. And the most powerful part, you don't need to announce any of this. No need for cryptic social media posts or declarations that you've changed. He'll notice. He'll sense it in your tone, in your silences, in how you don't try to impress him. He'll notice when you don't rush to fill the silence, when you don't cling to the moment, when you don't guide the conversation back to what you had. Because the version of you he's speaking to now isn't trying to win him back. She's simply living her truth, and that truth is compelling. When he sees he's no longer the emotional center of your world, when he realizes your peace doesn't rely on his validation, something inside him shifts. He starts thinking, I used to have access to this. She used to open her heart to me. And now she's just here, calm, grounded, totally free of needing my approval. That's when the dynamic changes. That's the surprise he didn't plan for. He didn't think you'd return without the emotional weight. And he didn't think he'd have to step up. He didn't expect he'd need to earn back your attention. But that's the difference between someone who just takes time away and someone who transforms during that time. It's tempting to use no contact as a tool, hoping it'll make someone come back. But when that time becomes a true period of growth, you stop wanting what you used to want. At least not in the same way. You're watching behavior. You're listening to energy. You're paying attention to how you feel around him. Does this match the woman I've become? And if it doesn't, you walk. Not out of anger. Not to prove anything, but because peace is now your standard. That's the real shift, when you come back and you're willing to walk away. Not as a game, but because you've built something stable within yourself. So the move he never anticipated, it's not about sending the perfect message. It's not about who texts first. It's about who you are when that moment finally comes. When the two of you speak again, whether through a message, a phone call, or in person, he'll be expecting the old version of you. The one who made space for him even when he didn't show up fully. The one who tried to fix things. The one who deep down just wanted him back. But she's gone. Now he's face to face with a woman who's clear, calm, emotionally mature, and completely detached from needing any outcome. A woman who doesn't need to chase, persuade, or argue her worth. A woman who silently makes it clear, if you want a place in my life again, you'll have to earn it. And that's the one thing he never saw coming. The aim now isn't to make him jealous. It's to gently show that I'm doing well. I didn't just get through it. I transformed. And here's the truth. Being positive doesn't mean faking a smile. It doesn't mean pretending everything was fine. It means you've truly taken time to heal and discovered peace. Not because he's gone, but because you become comfortable with your own company. But when you use no contact as a real growth season, not as a place to wait, that's when you change completely. Now imagine this. He hears about you or runs into you somewhere, and instead of drama or emotional outbursts, he sees kindness, calm. You're honestly glad to see him, not in a take me back kind of way, but in a I hope life's good for you kind of way. That stings the ego because It was expecting chaos. It was ready to be begged, blamed, or adored. But you brought peace. You became a reflection of emotional growth, and that reflection tells him, this is me now, whether or not you're part of my world. What really hits him in that moment isn't what you do say, it's what you keep to yourself. You don't ask, why did you hurt me like that? You don't talk about the late night texts he ignored. You don't go over the last fight. Why? Because the part of you that needed those answers doesn't control you anymore. The woman standing in front of him doesn't need closure. She became her own closure. And that doesn't mean the pain didn't happen. It just means you don't let that pain decide your value anymore. That's what shocks him. That the same woman he thought would fall apart without him has created a life she actually enjoys, maybe even more than the one she had with him in it. You see, men often don't fear losing you physically. What really unsettles them is realizing they've lost emotional access to you. That even if you were to speak again, it wouldn't feel familiar. The connection has shifted, the balance has changed, and the kind, secure energy you now carry, that's no longer his to influence. That belongs to you now. And this is where it becomes powerful. When he sees you glowing, but not for him, smiling. But not because of him. Doing well, with no bitterness in sight. He's faced with the version of you he never took the time to cherish. And suddenly the door he once shut so casually now feels a lot heavier to open, because now it's not just about whether you'd say yes again. It's about whether he's even worthy of asking. That's how you take the step he won't see coming. Not by trying to be a new person, but by being the true version of yourself. The version that couldn't fully show up when you were trying to squeeze into that relationship. Now, you stand firmly in your own power. You don't crave revenge. You don't need validation. You just arrive in your peace and let that speak louder than anything else. Sometimes, the boldest action is silence dressed as confident. Don't drag up the past. Let him carry it. It's a simple idea, but it's deeply powerful. Because here's what happens. When we come out of no contact, it's so tempting to explain everything. To say, let me tell you how much that hurt. Or, here's all I've been thinking during these months apart. On the surface, that seems like closure. It seems like honesty. But in truth, it's often just another attempt to reconnect through shared pain. And that's not the kind of bond you're after. What he expects, what many people expect, is that when someone finally breaks the silence, they'll bring emotional baggage with them, that they'll say, here's what you owe me, here's what you need to answer for. And even though those feelings are real, if you lead with that, you end up showing him a version of yourself that still wants something from him. That version is stuck in the past. And if you bring her into the conversation, he gets to fall back into his usual role. One where you're upset and he's distant. One where you're explaining and he's barely listening, or not listening at all. But imagine this instead. You return after time apart and say nothing about what happened. You don't revisit the breakup. You don't remind him of the promises he broke or the times he didn't show up for you. You just show up, calm, secure, and focused on what's ahead. That kind of silence, that lack of drama or confrontation, is what throws him off balance. Now, he's the one stuck in the past. He's the one replaying what happened, wondering, why isn't she bringing it up? Does she not care anymore? Has she really let go? And that's when the shift truly happens. When you don't speak on the past, it leaves an empty space. And silence makes people fill in the gaps. He starts thinking about your last interaction, what he said, how he ended things, how you responded. And now, instead of you guiding the emotional tone, he's stuck facing his own thoughts. You're not giving him direction. You're not feeding him lines. You're not controlling the emotional outcome anymore. He's alone with his own mirror now. And don't misunderstand, that silence, it's not avoidance, it's not pretending, it's not weakness. It's strength in its quietest form. That silence says, I already felt the pain. I sat with it. I learned from it. I don't need to relive it for you. Because the real strength isn't in the conversations you have. It's in the ones you no longer feel the need to start. When you talk about what happened, especially too soon, it can make him think you're still emotionally stuck there. But if you don't mention it at all, you're showing him something much deeper, that you've already moved past it. And if he wants to connect with you now, he'll have to meet you where you are, not drag you back into the chaos he left behind. Real emotional growth isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with powerful speeches or deep discussions. Sometimes it's just in your relaxed smile, in your steady presence, in your quiet confidence. He might try to bring it up. He might say, "You never really said how you felt," or "I thought you'd be more upset." That's your chance to stay grounded, not by diving back into the story, but by simply saying, "I've made peace with it. That's it. No more, no less." It's about emotional simplicity, saying less while meaning much more. What you hold back can matter just as much as what you share. And when he realizes that you're no longer emotionally trapped in that old version of you, that's when it sinks in. He no longer has emotional power over you. That's when regret starts creeping in, because you're not trying to guilt him. You're not asking for anything. You're not begging for a conversation. You're done. And when you're truly done, you're free. You're not attached to who he used to be. You're not tied to the person you were with him. You're moving on. You're growing. You've become someone who doesn't need to revisit the past just to prove how far you've come. That's what surprises him. He didn't see that coming. The stillness, the calm, the fact that you don't need to win because you already did that inside yourself. He didn't expect you to let him sit in his own reflection while you moved forward with peace and no emotional strings. So don't look back. Let him sit with his choices. Let him hold on to what he gave you. And while he's figuring that out, you keep walking forward. That's your real power. You don't have to give a speech about your growth. You don't need to write a long explanation about your healing. That's the trap. Thinking your transformation needs a spotlight. It doesn't. The biggest changes are quiet. They're felt, not performed. When someone comes back into your life, especially someone who once had emotional control over you, they're not expecting peace. They're expecting tension, questions, unfinished business. They expect to find the same emotional version of you they walked away from. But when you return different, when you don't need their approval or acknowledgement, that's when they freeze. That's when the doubt kicks in. Let me tell you something real. Proving you've grown isn't about your looks, your body, or your social media. That's surface stuff. That's the kind of transformation people talk about because it's easy to show. But true growth, the kind that draws people in, comes from inside. It's your energy. It's how you no longer get triggered like before. It's how you don't seek answers because you gave them to yourself. That's what leaves a mark. What truly shocks him is when he reaches out and finds you fully at peace, not acting, not pretending, but really there, in a space where you no longer need anything from him. That type of peace can't be faked. It's not in your timing. It's not in your texts. It's in the deep work you did, the kind where you accepted the truth, let go of the fantasy, and chose yourself again and again, even when it would have been easier to chase the old story. So when contact finally happens, whether planned or accidental, don't try to prove your progress. Let it show on its own. Let your peace say more than your words ever could. Let your self-worth shine brighter than your need to explain. And if he starts asking about the past, why you vanished, what changed, remember, you don't owe him a script. You don't owe anything that pulls you out of your present, because if you've done the inner work, you know you're not walking back into the same story. You've grown out of the woman who accepted confusion and emotional inconsistency. You've evolved.